ダメ。ここは丁寧にサクッと混ぜる。
Well, someone clearly needs to watch the first episode of Kira Kira again. And yeah, don't worry, I'll review next year and all that. We opened this week with Shoma telling his grunkle about Hanto to see if he could shed some light on how he got powers similar to his. He of course had to bribe this chunky old man a little, which considering his suit actor, you could also try a little beer next time. Oh wait, never mind. But yeah, they were able to correctly theorize that the surgery he went through gave him the power of a Grand Newt, as Gavv's powers stem from him using both sides of his heritage. However, Dente then suggested that the surgeon who gave him his powers had to have been a Grand Newt himself, which, hey, come on, that can't be the case, right? Anyway, this also brought up the issue of Shoma still hiding the fact that he was half Grand Newt, which probably isn't going to end well with Hanto later. And on a completely unrelated note, he also asked about the sudden burst of memories he got when he saw Hanto's mother, which the old Grand Newt didn't have much to say about, because we can't just jump to those likely soul-crushingly depressing developments just yet. Though speaking of depressing, the twins had indeed reached rock bottom and were looking for a little revenge. Hey, come on, that will all have family. The next day, Sachika presented Shoma with a U-log and explained how it was a cake meant for Christmas. And thankfully, unlike the stores, he correctly pointed out how it was still a little early for the holidays. Thus, she explained how it was a practice cake that she was going to make for someone else later, and figured that she could share it with Shoma, which worked out nicely, as of course, this would be his first actual cake after hearing his mom talk about it endlessly. Well, that, and he also saw siblings eat Grand Newt cakes for their birthdays, which, yeah, maybe it's one of those cakes meant for Halloween or something. But yeah, this is also meant to show the favoritism of this already very messed up family, as his slightly older siblings were getting the special treatment. And yet, Shoma, being a little sweetheart even back then, he did at least try to celebrate with the twins. Well, okay, at least these two were genuinely loved by Shoma, so maybe they aren't entirely bad. Yeah, no, these two have and always will be garbage. Back in the present, and after making some room in his tummy, Shoma wanted to try his hand at baking some cake, which Sachika agreed to help him with. The two ended up picking a strawberry shortcake recipe, which just so happened to be what his mom told him about. Boy, would it have been awkward if she had chosen something like a chocolate cake. I mean, honestly, it would have been my personal choice, but we do have to kind of go for accuracy with these videos. Anyway, after gathering all of their ingredients, the two tried their hand at cake making, with some confusing mixed results. Like, I get Shoma being clumsy, but I don't think a steel bowl should get that hot that quick, especially with water that's clearly not steaming. Hell, if you're gonna do it, you may as well make it kind of real. Legit still one of my favorite comedies of all time. Anyway, it did lead to a pretty wholesome scene where Sachika suggested that Shoma think of a person he wanted to make the cake for to lighten him up a little on the mixing, and of course make it with love and kiakiaru or whatever. This led to a pretty comedic bit where Shoma ended up creepily looking at Sachika on and off, but I also imagine this is going to be an important plot point for next week too. Meanwhile, Hanto was observing Shoma's growing popularity, which considering how the Grand Newts go after happiness spices, this might be a little bit of a double-edged sword. He also learned about a chain of disappearances connected to a very obvious Grand Newt musician. Like, they didn't even try to build up to this reveal, they just showed the culprit having captured a bunch of victims. Yeah, dude, that's not a smile, that's a face of frustration that he wasn't going to make it to the bathroom. He also did mention how things were a little different before Londo took charge, i.e. when the father was still around and running things, which we'll get back to later. Anyway, both writers used their usual methods of detective work and snack networking to track down the hipster Newt. Well, actually, he turned out to be another crab monster, which, yeah, that's an interesting coincidence. Still, this wouldn't end up being one of the main fights of this week, as Gavv would end up following and confronting one of the twins' agents, leaving the crab to Hanto, who was a bit of a scrub that he could easily take out on his own. Did someone slip some booze into this frosting? So, yeah, after that recreation of the original Smash Bros. Commercial, their fight continued with Hanto eventually taking the win after kicking a wayward bullet in the water, which, yeah, I'm pretty sure that thing would more likely go around his leg than him being able to kick it. But again, after a scene like that, who really gives a crap about logic? Anyway, as a result, Hanto managed to rescue the press victims, and the Grand Newt, in frustration, revealed that they used to do things by just plain up abducting humans. Which, considering that he had been working for the Stolmoks for about 20 years, that lined up with his mother's disappearance, which then brings up the question, what did Shoma's father do with all of the abductees like her?
Nobody knows.
Anyway, as we said, the real fight this week took place elsewhere, in this case the usual battle location, which, come to think of it, we haven't really seen much of this season, so it's actually a nice change up. As was Gavv's new seasonally specific form, Bushel, and it looked okay. I mean, the logs turning into horns is kind of clever, but those shoulder pads just look really off. Statistically, it leaned more towards Mighty Glacier, but was nowhere near as slow as Shoma's other tankier forms in exchange for a little less offense and defense. With it, he managed to make quick work of the agent, though again, this wasn't the real fight of the episode. No, of course, it was time for the real first battle between Shoma and his siblings. And oh boy, it did anything but disappoint. Like, if you want a good example of how to do an effective 2-on-1 beatdown where the handicapped combatant still puts up a decent fight, well, this is it. At several points, I did get the sense that Shoma might have won if he was just fighting one of these two, but their synergy and field command made it so that even when he used some pretty clever tactics, like using all of his gummy Gochuzos at once, they managed to work together to dodge his attacks and keep him on the defensive. All the while, the twins complained to the writer over how much their lives had been ruined by him, in particular the fact that they'd inevitably have to be separated, as I doubt Longo will let them roam free forever. And through their, frankly, kind of creepy bonds, they defeat Shoma in a great example in how you both get over the threat of the main antagonist of your show, and also, of course, build up the hero rising from the ashes. But yeah, with that, the episode ended with Shoma falling to the forest below as Hanto watched, having arrived just a little late. This was a very effective first half to what's likely going to be the finale to the first major story arc of this show. While a little lighter on the plot, with just small hints at future developments, the main battle here really brought in all of the action and emotions for a proper climax and really stood out. Now, that's not to say that other battles were forgettable in any way, just their own different flavor of memorable. As star villains for the season, the twins have been pretty great. As we said, they're good examples of baddies we'd love to hate and want to see karma be brought down upon. And sure, we could feel empathy to a degree, seeing how close they were to each other. In the case of the former, it did let them go to town on Shoma in one of the best battles of the season so far, but it has resulted in them developing an unhealthy obsession with one another. Yeah, the arranged marriage stuff is screwed up, but the fact that they can't interact healthily with anyone else, including their little brother, will be their undoing. Speaking of whom, Shoma's baking scene with Sachika was very cute and charming. I mean, it's nothing I haven't seen 1,000 times in other shows, but it at least highlighted the writer's healthy desire to learn more about Earth culture. Now, something I haven't seen much of was Hanto's fight with the Grand Newt, which, yeah, was so bizarre, I kind of loved it. I mean, it at least furthered other developments in the show, like the deeper mysteries of the Stomach family pre-Longo, and what might have happened to Hanto's mother. Little developments like that helped this episode that was kind of light on plot feel a little more important. And overall, this is just a really good outing with some exciting developments and other stuff. The Yule log did make for an effective Gochuzo specifically for the holiday season, but there's still one more cake that Shoma needs to partake in. Thank you for watching, and I think I've brought up Thanksgiving more than enough, so I hope y'all had a happy Black Friday if you enjoy consumerism. I mean, personally, I did take advantage of it by buying myself an air fryer and a new mic, so if the sound quality is marginally better in this video, you know why now. If it doesn't, well, that's just my voice, so what can you do? Look forward to whatever comes next, and until then though, farewell for now my friends, and if you'll excuse me, I think I'll try my hand at baking again for some future videos maybe.